everybody, welcome to another Beans Bag and Handicraft Company tutorial. Today we are making this lovely bag by Oro Rosa Designs. I believe this is a free pattern on her website. I will leave a link in the description down below where you can get this. This is the Shazzy Wristlet. This is awesome. This would be awesome for a night out on the town. You can dress it up. You can, depending what fabrics you choose. Yeah, it's awesome. So I'll show you some of the features of this before we get started. On the inside, it's got a slip pocket that has 8 card slots on one side, and on the other side you have a single slip pocket with a zipper. I mean, this is a perfect clutch to take with you anywhere. And then it's got this decorative grommet and a wristlet. It's a really fun quick sew. I really enjoyed making it. With this one, I used cork from Cork Supply on the exterior, and the lining, I have no idea where I got this. I just got it out of my stash, but it's cotton fabric. The only interfacing you need for this is a woven interfacing. I used SF101. If you need to source that out, you need to know where to get it. I do sell it on my website. I am located in Canada, so I got many interfacings on my website if other Canadians are having a hard time finding things, or I will ship to the States as well. I'll leave all of that down in the description below. But let's get to it of making the Shazzy Wristlet. I'll see you guys on the other side. Okay, so to get ready for putting the Shazzy together, one thing that I did with the pattern pieces is when you have your card slot folding guide, they're just on paper from the pattern. I went ahead and I actually cut the sizes out of cardstock. You'll see why that is when we go over to the ironing board. They just really help when it comes to making those card slots. So you can use what you have. You can use, there are those rulers you can iron over as well, but I'm just using, this is just comic book board that I used to put my fabric on, so I just cut one of them up. Okay, so hardware wise, you're going to need one whole rivet. You are going to need 2 grommets. If you follow my tutorials, you know that grommets are my kryptonite. I actually have a grommet press. I still haven't been able to figure out how to put the grommets in properly to get them to go properly. So what I did was I went and I bought these ones. They're a screw-in grommet from Emmeline Bags. They're a little bit fancy, but that's what I'm going to use today until I can have more practice with actually doing a grommet press. And I'm really bad at doing them by hand, so grommets, my kryptonite. I really have to practice doing that. Anyways, you need 2 grommets. You need 1 gate ring. You need a number 3 pull and number 3 zipper, and a number 5 pull and number 5 zipper, and your nameplate. And that is it for hardware. Super easy. For material, now all my cotton pieces I have interfaced with SF101 woven interfacing. If you need to buy that, or if you need a place that you can source it out, I actually do sell it on my website. I will link all of that below. Interfacing, that's all there is in this, is the SF101. So all my cotton pieces are backed with that. I have my card slot piece, which has the interfacing out of the seam allowances. Honestly, this is the only one I kept it out of the seam allowances, but I do have an industrial machine, so yeah, otherwise use the measurements that are in the pattern to decide how big your interfacing piece should be. Okay, so you need your 2 outer pieces, which I'm doing in cork today, and your 2 lining main pieces. Again, the lining main pieces are backed with SF101. The cork or vinyl, no interfacing. I just double check. Yes, no interfacing. I have a length of cork for my wristlet strap. I have a piece for my zipper facing. This is not interfaced. I have 2 pieces of cork for my zipper tabs. Oh, and I didn't label these, so let's see if I remember what they are. I haven't trimmed my interfacing. I fused it all, but I haven't trimmed it yet. That's why it looks weird. But you need a piece for your slip pocket. You need a piece for your card backing. your piece for your zipper pocket. Now I did my zipper pocket in 2 pieces, mainly because I'm using scrap fabric and I didn't have a piece long enough, but I had enough in my scraps to cut 2, so it's just like that but cut in half. So, and that is it. So I'm going to attempt to do this. This is my first time doing this. I'm going to show you how to make the card slots with the iron. So I am going to go and set up my iron in the in my painting station, just because my ironing board is just, I can't get my camera to see what we're doing there. So I'm going to go do that and come back, and we're going to start with the card slots. All right, so first off, I am going to apologize for the sunlight. It's morning and the sun is shining through, and I do not have a curtain on this window. So yeah, we're getting the morning sun here, but I think you can still see what I am doing, so we are going to go with it. I also apologize for my state of my cut and press mat. It's really old. It's really old. I don't use it very often, but yeah, it's looks pretty gruesome, but it's really not. It's well loved. Okay, so the hardest part of this bag is actually making the card slots, and it's really not that hard. So I have my 3 cutout pieces, the 2.75, the 2.25, and the 1.75 pieces. So what you want to do is you want to lay your card slots right side up and lengthwise, and you want to lay it 2 inches, 2.35 inches. So I'm just using my mat here. So this is your piece A, and you are going to fold it over top of that, so it's almost like right sides together, putting this inside. So, and then ironing that crease like so. Use a little steam to press it. Okay, then you can take that out. You want to flip your card slots wrong side up. Let's take the smaller piece, your B piece, and we're going to lay it right along this pressed edge that we just did, like so. So nice and even. And then we're going to bring our fabric over like so. And then you're going to press along that seam, and you can go right over top of this cardstock. That's why I like it in there. It gives that nice crisp edge. I have an Oliso iTouch iron, as you can see. I usually would keep it down, but I don't want to put it down on my cutting board here. Okay, and then the next thing you're going to do is take your C piece and take out that B piece, and you're going to lay it right along that fold again of the one we just did. And flip it over. And iron along that. I am so sorry about the light, guys. I hope you can see what we're doing here. Okay. And then you're going to take the shorter piece again, put it along that edge we just pressed, nice and straight, and flip it over again. And you can see that we are starting to create, if I can shade it a little bit, our card slots here. And then just press along there. And then again, along that folded line, that the fold that we just pressed, and then bring it back over again like this. Press along that line. Slide that out, get the smaller one again, put it right up against that line. And you can see how even our card slots are. It's amazing. All right, so we have to go one more time. So again, lay this right along that folded edge, that pressed edge we just did, Fold it back over like this, press, and then one last time with the short one. Put this along the folded edge. And press. And you can tell I didn't cut my piece very straight. I'm gonna have to straighten it out. But that should leave us with 1, 2, 3, 4 pockets. So the next thing we are going to do is we are going to take this to our sewing machine and we are going to top stitch along each one of these folds here. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so we are playing around with angles here. I know it's not the best setup. Seriously, my wall is like right behind the camera here. I have a very small space, but I want to show you how I do this at the machine. So we have our card slots here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. One thing I like to do, and I always have in my drawer here, is a card. And I'm just making sure that the depth is good, just to make sure they're all even before I top stitch. And we are good to go. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with this first. We're going to top stitch each one of these. So you're going to take this top piece and you're just going to fold it back like this. And that's going to make it so we can top stitch along this top part. And if the camera shakes, I apologize. Again, it's really close to my machine here. But let me know how you like this angle, if this is good or bad or... Okay, so that's one done. My tension is just slightly tight, so I'm just going to loosen it a little bit. Okay. So that's what we have there. We've top stitched that one. So now we're going to take these two and we're going to fold them back so they're like that, so we can top stitch the next one. The tension's much better now. So now if we fold it up, we have 2 top stitched. So now we're going to fold these other ones back that we just did so we can top stitch this next one. Okay, where are we sitting here? So that's 3, and then once more. So there we go, we have those all top stitched. So the next thing we want to do, this fabric frays like a son of a gun, holy moly, is want to measure in from one side. I can see this side here, I'm a little uneven. I'm going to have to trim that up at my table, but this side's pretty good. And I believe it's, yes, you want to mark 4 1/4 of an inch from the left side. So you're going to take your ruler, you're going to line it up. Sorry if you see my head here. You want to make sure you're nice and straight. Just take your chalk. And one thing I do again, because I'm always paranoid about card slots, is we know there's going to be stitching there, so I just make sure that there's plenty of room, and there is. Okay. So we are going to stitch the center of our card slots here. So I'm going to start at the bottom, back stitch, and just follow that line all the way up. Now you could stop there, but I'm actually going to spin it around and go back down, and that's just going to give me another line of stitching over top of that. That's going to solidify those card slots, because we're going to be pulling cards in and out of them so much. You don't want the stitching to come off later. There we go. There we have it, our card slots. So we're going to take this back to the cutting table to even this out. I'll show you what I'll do. This is the hardest part of the whole pattern. Again, this is the first time I've made this, so maybe I shouldn't say that. I haven't gotten to the grommets part yet, but that is the card slots. So let's move on over to the cutting table for the next step. All right, so we're back at the cutting table here. You may notice that I have a little bit of bunching here. That's what happens when you're on an industrial machine and you're sewing lighter fabrics, and it's happening where I didn't have the interfacing. So that's why I usually interface when I'm on my industrial, the whole thing, just because my machine isn't made for lightweight fabric, and that's exactly what happens outside of that. But that's all going to be hidden anyway, so it's not, I'm actually going to cut it off right now. Okay, so now we want to trim this up. So what we're going to do is you're going to measure, that's not going to work, from that center line that we just sewn. We want this from the center to the end, we want it to be 4 inches. I'm just going to double check, 4 inches, yes. And then just take your rotary cutter and trim up that side. I didn't do a very good job. Okay, and flip it over, and we're going to do the exact same thing, 4 inches from that center line on the other side. And we cut off all my cinched fabric there, which is good. Well, it's still there a little bit. Okay, and then we want to make this top line nice and straight. So let's get this figured out. You can see how it's not very straight there, so I'm going to go and straighten that up so it's nice and straight, like so. This fabric really frays a lot. Holy moly. Okay, so it's about 3/4 inch higher than that first card slot. And then, now that we know that that's nice and straight, we want this whole thing to be 5 inches. So I'm going to line my ruler up along that top line, along the side here, and trim off this little bit of excess on the bottom. So that should leave us with 5 by 8 inches. And we have, just using my thing here, 5 inches and 8 inches. We are golden. So yes, that's doing those card slots. So now what we want to do is we want to put this face up on our workspace, and we want to grab, make sure this is it, yes, our card slot backing, and we're going to put them right sides together. They should be the same size, hopefully. Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Right sides together. Whoops, where's my clips? And we are going to clip along the top. And down the sides. And the other side. Now on the bottom here, I'm just going to make a few marks just to remind myself. So we're going to leave the bottom open. Three to 4 inches. I've gone a little bit overboard. We'll go from there, 1, 2, 3, 4 to there. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to sew, we're going to leave this bottom open. We're going to sew this way, up here, down this side, down here, and then back here, and then we're going to turn it. Okay, so we're going to sew that with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Leaving that bottom open. Back stitch at start. Needle down to pivot. Of course, my needle wasn't down as I say that. Needle down to pivot. Okay. So we've gone all the way around, and now what we want to do is we want to trim that down, that seam allowance. I'm not going to trim the bottom, but on all the corners I'm actually going to do it diagonal without cutting the stitching, like that, but close to the stitching on all 4 corners. And then I'm going to trim the seam allowances down to about an eighth-ish of an inch seam allowance, but leaving this bottom long because we're still going to have to sew that shut once we turn it. Okay, once you've done that, you can go ahead and through the hole, flip it the right side around. You want to make sure you're poking out all your corners so they're as crisp as can be. Do I have something I can poke out with? I'll just use a felt pen. Okay. Now, press that nice and flat. We're going to take this to our iron. We're going to press it nice and flat. So our seam, you'll kind of roll this top seam down, make sure you rolled it. And for where this opening is, we're going to leave it open for now, but you want to put in the seam allowance like that and press it because we're going to end up top stitching along this. So you have all your raw edges sticking out like this. You want to fold them in like this. So the raw edges are inside, and then press it like that. So after I'm done pressing, I'm going to come back and then I'm going to top stitch. I'm not going to do this on camera. I'm just going to come back to the machine and top stitch right along here once it's pressed with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So go ahead, do that, turn your bottom under, give it a good press, give it all a really good press, top stitch that, and then we'll go back to the cutting table and do the next step. Okay, so that's all done. I got the top stitched here. We have our backing on. I actually didn't even realize I had my hearts going the right way, so that's good. And we have our 8 card slots. Again, I'm just going to take a card and make sure they all fit because we're going to be sewing this with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. We want to make sure that they're all going to fit. And we should be good. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've top stitched along there. I have my opening here, but everything is folded under You still want to leave it open. Another thing you want to do before we go to attach this to the lining is take a card and just make sure that you have enough room along this side for about 1/8 of an inch, because we're going to be sewing this onto the thing with 1/8 of an inch. So you just want to make sure that you have that on each side so your cards will fit. I said it's a very, very closed fit, so double check that. If you don't have enough room, turn this around and make your pick out some seams and make it 1/8 of an inch shorter, but it worked out good for me. Okay, so the next step is we want to take one of our lining panels, main panels, and have it right side up. We want to go 1.5 inches in from the left side, 1.5 from the left side, and 1/2 inch up from the bottom. So I am just using my rulers here as my placement. Whoops, that's 1 1/4. We want 1.5, 1.5, and 1 inch up like that. And then we are going to put our card slot panel right in there. So it's going to be off center for this because we're going to have the rivet hole here and everything like that. Not rivet, grommet hole there. So this is off centered. So and then I'm just going to take a couple pins to hold it in place. Oh, of course my pins aren't very sharp. I don't use pins very often. It's always clips, but there's really no way of clipping this here. So keep it as straight as you possibly can. Oh my God, I grabbed the same pen. Okay, having not good luck with my pins here. There's a sharp one. Okay. And you know what? It all moved up on me. Do this again. 1/2 inch up. Let's do the bottom first. Good on the bottom there. 1/2 inch, 1.5 in, nice and straight. So I probably don't even use the right pins. These are from when I used to do quilting, so they're super old and super dull. Okay. Double check here, 1.5 in, 1/2 inch up, and then what we're going to do is take this to the machine, and I'm not going to take this to the machine. I'm just going to go off camera and do it. You want to sew down the right side with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance along the bottom, and that's going to close this bottom up here, top stitching, and back up. You do not, I repeat, do not want to sew this top line because that's going to be like a slip pocket. So just the left side, the right side, and the bottom with 1/8 of an inch top stitch. All right, there we go. And I've stitched all the way around the sides. I've closed off the bottom and left this top open so we have a nice slip pocket and then all of our card slots. I also double checked again, and I always double, triple check everything that the cards do fit in, because especially if you're selling it, people are not happy if their cards do not fit. So I always double check every single card slot, and we are good. So you can put this one aside for now. Now we're going to work on the other side for the slip pocket. So This is very similar to how we did the card slots to make a slip pocket. So we want to fold this in half upon itself, like so. Of course, I didn't cut it very even. And what we're going to do is we're going to clip these sides together. So fold it in half, right sides together. Make sure I have the right piece here before I do this. Yes, I do. Okay. And I'm a little uneven here, but you know what? It's going to catch it in the seam, so I'm not worried about it. It'll just be a little bit less there. Okay, and then we're going to leave about a 3-inch mark for turning, like that. So you're going to sew down. Make sure it's a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I believe so. Yeah. So you're going to sew down here. Going to come here. You're going to back stitch. Leave this bottom part open. Start again here. Back stitch, and sew all the way up. Then you're going to turn it through that right sides out and give it a good press. So go ahead and do that, and then we'll attach this to the other. I came back. So you can see here I have sewn from my marks. Lift the bottom open. So just like with our card slots, the corners don't cut into the stitching, but I just like to trim it a little bit on those corners. And this is where, see what I mean? I was uneven here, but it caught it in my seam allowance, so it'll be okay now. So I wasn't worried about it. And then you're going to trim this down to about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, not along the bottom because we are going to turn that under. Okay, so we have a piece that looks like this. So then what you want to do is just turn it through that opening. My purple thing for my poker. Chopsticks work good for pokers too. I just use whatever I have around. Poke out those corners. So I used a directional fabric, so on the inside it's going to have upside down hearts, but the hearts are going right on the right side of it. Those corners out best you can. All right, so that's what we have. So we're going to take this to the iron again, just like we did with the card slots. You're going to fold over this open edge here so the raw edges are inside, and give that a good press. We're going to leave that unsewn for now. And I'm going to take this to, once it's pressed, to my sewing machine, and I'm going to top stitch along this top with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So there's the slip pocket all done. I have it all top stitched along there. We have this bottom part open. We're just going to set this aside for now. So next you want to grab your zipper facing, and we're going to prep for the lining zipper pocket. So what you want to do is take your grid ruler, measure in from the long edge, 3/4 of an inch. And mark it. In from the long edge to make sure I'm doing this right. Yes. And then we want to draw another one above that 1/2 inch apart from there. I'm following her pattern exactly for this, so if it seems like it's not a way I usually do it, but it looks good for this one, so okay. And then from each of the short edges you want to measure in 2 inches. And that should leave us with approximately 6 inches. Yay, we have 6 inches. You're going to grab your other main panel lining piece. Again, I didn't trim my interfacing, so I'm going to do that now. Okay. Make sure my hearts are going the right direction. Okay. Pin the interfacing. I'm trying to see where we are putting this. It looks like we are putting it right up against like that. Does that look right? Yes. So I'm actually going to pin this on here, put it right through the center here. So you're lining it up with the right side. And my zipper facing, there's no right side or wrong side. So if there was a right side for your zipper facing, you'd want your you'd want them to be right sides together. Ouch, poked myself. Okay, and what I'm going to do now, and actually she doesn't do it in this, I don't believe, but I'm going to do it. She doesn't sew these little lines here, but I'm more comfortable sewing those little lines. She just leaves them open, but I'm going to sew them. So along this middle rectangle, you're going to go ahead and sew around that. All right, so I've sewn all the way around that rectangle. Again, it's going to look off center, but that's okay, because if you think about these going together, we want this area here to be open because that's where that grommet's going to go. So it's supposed to be off center. Okay, so next step is we want to draw a 1/2 inch line in from our stitching here. So we have that stitching. I'm going a 1/2 inch in. Just turning that box into a 5-inch box. And I'm going to draw a line, a 1/4 inch line down the middle here. And this is creating where we're going to cut for the zipper, to install the zipper in. And then do little V's from the lines to the corners. Just like that. Then what I do is I like to take my, you know what, I don't have my mic on. I am so sorry, guys. I will admit, I've been up since 3 a.m. and it is now noon. So if I'm a little flustered, that is why I did not sleep at all last night. We have the fires happening here in Kamloops right now, so everything is kind of all stressful and I did not sleep. I made a bag, but I did not sleep. Anyways, back to the tutorial. So inside those 1/2 inch lines, I'm going to take my rotary cutter and just start cutting the lines. So I haven't gone all the way to the lines. I'm going to do the rest with my scissors. So I'm going to cut to the lines and then I'm going to cut up into the V's as close as I can to the stitching without cutting the stitching. And trust me, I have cut the stitching. It's not good. You can always fix it. You just have to go sew it again. But everything is fixable. Wow. Most things are fixable. Okay, so now we have this open with these little triangle things here. And what we want to do next is we want to flip the zipper facing to the other side through the hole. Come on. And then we're going to take this to the iron. This is what we do, and we're going to press it just like that, so it gives us a nice transition. So go ahead and press it and come back. We'll install that zipper. Okay, so this is what we have after we have done that. You can set that aside for now. Now you're going to pull your zipper pocket piece, and I've cut mine in 2 pieces because I didn't have enough fabric for length. Mine's also directional fabric, but my hearts are going to go the wrong way because that was just for the fabric I had left. That was the only way I could get the pieces out of it. Okay, so I do this just slightly different because I do have 2 pieces rather than the one. Let me find my tape. So what I like to do when I do my zipper pockets, and I have many zipper pocket tutorials in my Bag Makers 101 playlist. I have a bunch of classes in that playlist on how to do stuff like zippers or purse feet or what have you. So you can check out my many ways of doing the lining zippers down there. Okay, so what I like to do is, if I can find the end of my tape on my lining pieces, I like to take some tape, and again, you don't have to use tape. They can gum up needles. My machine can handle it. I did find when I used to use my domestic machine, if I used Dritz Wash Away Wonder Tape, I could sew through that no problem with my Juki 2010Q, and it wouldn't gum up the needle. So that was good. So then you're going to want to take my zippers a little bit longer, but that's okay. So you want to take one of your zipper panels, and with right side, both the zipper and the panel right side up, I'm going to stick this to that tape along that edge. Again, you can use clips, you don't have to use tape. Just like so. And then I'm going to sew across this, baste it with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Press it open this way. Okay. And then I'm going to go with the other one and do the exact same thing. Put it on there, sew across that with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then press it open. So we're going to have something that looks like this in the end. So go ahead, do that. We'll come back and we will put it onto our panel. Okay, so you can see I basted them all on. I have it pressed open. So we have the zipper up and the lining's wrong side up. So again, this isn't how she does it in the pattern. This is how I like to do it. It's very, very similar. Next thing I like to do is take more tape and put it along each side of the zipper. I'm not used to working with the number 3 zipper. I usually use number 5. And I haven't tacked my edges here, so I have to be very careful I don't throw my pull off of it. So, okay. So to start, I just take off one side of the tape. Oops. Come on, tape. Like so. Then I'm going to take my panel and I'm going to center it as best I can on there. The reason I only take the tape off one side is then it's not sticking to this bottom, and you can get this adjusted exactly where you want it before worrying about the next one. I'll try that again. So kind of just put it where you want it to go and stick it down. If that looks good, it's pretty. It's not centered enough for me. Let me try that again. We want to make sure that we have enough of the zipper on this side and on this side to sew to close it up. So that looks good. And then I flip this up and I take the tape off the bottom part. Oh my gosh, this tape does not want to let go. Okay. And put it where you want it to be. That looks good to me. And then what we're going to do is you want to make sure that you have them both up like this. And we're going to top stitch along this box with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so that's all done. It's all top stitched around. So the next step is, now this is where, because I cut it in 2 different pieces, it's a little different than hers, because then you would have had a loop. This bottom part would have been all attached, and you would have just sewn down the sides. I'm going to have to sew down the sides and across the bottom. Up here I'm going to have to trim this a little bit because it's too big, which is okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take this to my sewing machine this way. I'm going to fold this up like this. Actually, first you can take these facings, you can trim the facing away like so. And like so. Okay, so you're going to fold this up. You're going to sew down here, these little triangles here. You're going to catch that. I always do a little back tack on that triangle, then I know the zipper is good. All the way down here, making sure I don't sew through this. Flip this here, sew along the bottom, and then the same on this side, making sure I catch that little triangle and back tack it right there. So let's go do that. Okay, so then just make sure your zipper works. And there's my sideways hearts in there. And that part is done. Okay, now we want to retrieve that slip pocket that we had just previously made, which is my good side. And we want to place it, this time it's from the right side. I'm gonna bring it closer. Ah, my camera cut out. Ran out of battery. I had to take a short break. Okay, so where we were measuring 1/2 inch up from the bottom, and I lost my instructions, and I believe it was 1 and a little bit in. So what we're going to do now is just like we did with the card pocket, is we're leaving the top open. We have this bottom here, we're going to end up closing it. We're going to top stitch with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance down this side, across the bottom to seal it up, and up this side. So go ahead and do that. All right, so that's our 2 lining pieces put aside. Again, we have areas that are wider here because that is how our grommet is going to go in, like that. So now we can work on the exterior. So I'm going to do the optional. There is an option for exterior stitching details. So you can like do a zigzag stitch or whatever. I'm actually just going to do just a straight stitch down because I don't feel like turning on my Elna that has the special stitches right now. So what I'm going to do is you do the decorative stitching 4.5 inches in. So I'm just going to go and measure that in 4.5 inches, and I'm going to draw a line. Now if I was using a directional print, I would want to make sure I did it the opposite way, but I'm not using a directional print, so it can flip no matter what. So if it was a directional print, you'd want to make sure it was in from the right rather than the left, so they would be opposite like this, because when they go together this way, they would match up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just do my straight stitches down those lines for decorative stitching, and then we'll be done. Okay, now that we're done the front and the back panel, I will show those. They're at my cutting table right now, but I did also put on my name plate and I did the decorative stitching. So now we are going to prep our main zipper. So I'm using Zipper by the Yard. I'm going to make sure I tack on the ends here so the zipper pull is not going to go anywhere. It helps if I turn my machine on. And on the other side too. Okay, and then I'm just going to take my lighter because I got some little frays there and just melt those ends down a little bit. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you're going to take your little zipper tabs and you're going to put them down right sides together like so. Which way do I want to do it? This way. Like so. Put a clip there if you'd like. Just going to double check what my seam allowance is. Okay, and we are going to sew that at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And I like to go back and forth over the zipper teeth just to make sure that those are secured good. So now we have something that looks like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fold this back upon itself and over top of that seam that we just did like this. So we have a non-raw edge on this side and a raw edge on the other side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch right along here with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And you know what? I missed the back part. It didn't go all the way over. So I am going to do a second line of stitching to put that in place there. So mine is going to be a little different. Which is okay. I may have cut them short or I may have them on there wrong, I'm not sure. So now I got 2 lines of stitching on mine, but it is holding that in place. So I'm going to have to repeat that with the other side. That one did catch, so I'm assuming I just cut this one a little bit too short, but that's okay. That's going to be on the other side, underside, and it won't be seen. But I have to make this one look the same as that, so I'll do a second line of stitching. And that's our zipper ready to go. Okay, so we're back here at the table with our main panels. There's my very simple decorative stitching. I just did 2 parallel lines at that 4.5 inch mark on both sides. You want to make sure, because they'll be together like this eventually, you want to make sure that you have those lines on the same side like this. Okay, so we're going to take our front panel. Usually I have my zipper closing to the left, but in the pattern she has it closing to the right, so we are going to follow that. I am so sorry about my table shaking here. Oh well, it is what it is. Okay, so I'm gonna do this a little bit different than how she does it in the pattern, just because I like to skip a step. So what I'm going to do is we are going to take our lining panel that has the zipper pocket, and we're going to take some double-sided tape I am actually first going to straighten this out because I'm very, very crooked here. So I obviously, my cutting really sucked when I cut this out. I'll just eyeball it. As you can see here, I'm way off here. It goes off kilter a little bit here, but that's okay. Okay, so again, I'm going to take my double-sided tape on the lining piece. Still off there. Not the end of the world. And put it along the right side of the lining. Like so. Take that off. And then I'm going to take my zipper, and of course we have it closing to the right, and we want to put it centered along this line. So I just use my board here to find that center mark, and this is going right side up on here. So it's about 1 inch in from each side. Make that nice and straight. So you can pin it too. You don't have to use double-sided tape. I'm using double-sided tape to skip having to go base this. So if you'd like, you can go ahead and base this with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to this, but I'm going to skip that step. I'm now going to take my right side panel, my main panel, and I'm going to put double-sided tape all along the top of this. Like so. And I'm going to put it right sides together with the zipper in the lining, sandwiching the zipper in between the lining and the exterior. I'm pretty much just using my double-sided tape as my base. Okay, and then I'm going to go to my machine and I'm going to put on my zipper foot. Oopsies. And then we're going to stitch it together along this side with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so I have my zipper foot on there, and we are going to do a 3/8 of an inch. Get my guide here. Being very careful not to go over top of your zipper. When you get to your zipper pull, you may have to pull it out of the way. So just make sure your needle is down, lift up your presser foot, and move your zipper out of the way. So now we have something that looks like this. So now what we want to do is we want to top stitch along here, but we don't want our lining to be in that. We just want to top stitch along this seam allowance and the exterior. So you're going to make sure, which way do I want to do this way? So you want to make sure your seam allowance is pushing towards the exterior of the bag and your lining is going this way. Actually, do you know what? I'm showing a mistake here. You can see my zipper is going to be wavy because look at this. See how this goes way up like that? That means that I got off kilter there. So I am going to quickly fix that. Where is that? Right here. Oops, and rethread my machine because I just pulled it out. We don't want a wavy zipper. And I can see why here. It's because my lining slipped down a little bit right at that point. So I am just going to accommodate for that right in this area here. So right about there. And I still got to come in a little bit more right there. This is how you fix this. Thread's going crazy here. And we're all fixed. You can see how it's all even there now. So that is good. Okay, back to the top stitching. So again, you don't want to catch the lining in the top stitching, but you want to catch that seam allowance. So a little bit off there, but I'm going to just fix that with my top stitching a little bit here. And try to have even amount of black zipper showing as you can for the tape. There we go. Move my zipper out of the way. Okay, so you can see, oh my gosh, look at all these threads. See how it went through the seam allowance here, but only through the exterior, not through the lining. So now you're going to go ahead and do that with the other two pieces. I'm going to go ahead and do that part off camera, and then we'll come back and do the next step. Okay, so there it is, all done. You should have something like this, and I just realized I said I was following the pattern, was going to have it close to the right, but I guess old habits are hard to break because I made it closing to the left. It doesn't really matter. It'll be fine. But yeah, I think so. Yeah, because she'll be putting the thing on this side here, but that is okay. Okay, so next step, up your zipper. You want to place the exteriors right sides together and the linings right side together. And we are going to clip it. So what I do here, this is actually, I love that she's done it this way. This is my preferred way of doing zipper tabs. So there's going to be like little openings here, which is okay, but then you don't get that ugly, I know I can never get those zipper tabs right if I have to fold or sew over them, so we won't be sewing over them. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're matching up these seams here, and you want to kind of have the tab pushing towards the lining. So line up, if you can see there, the two exterior seams there, and clip it. And do that on the other side. Again, make sure your zipper is open. So lining up where those seams meet right there. And clip it. Okay, and then we're also going to clip the lining, but we are going to leave an opening in the lining bottom from about here to here for turning. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to start here. I believe we're doing 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, yes. Okay, so you're going to start here, you're going to back stitch, you're going to go 3/8 of an inch seam allowance here, up, all the way up the side, make sure you don't sew over those zipper tabs, all the way up here, across, down, and here, and back tack. I have to change out my zipper foot into my regular foot, and then I'll be doing that. Okay, so that's done. So now what we're going to do is we're going to trim our seam allowances, but not down where we left this opening. So again, because I'm doing square corners, I like to cut my corners like that. Same with on these corners. And then go. Okay, and then you're going to turn your bag. Hopefully you've left your zipper open. You're going to reach in through the opening and turn your bag through the opening. Take where your zipper tabs are and push them out like this. And look how beautiful they turn out. Like, it's the perfect way to do zipper tabs. And on this side too. Take an object and push out those corners really good. I'm just using a pen just to make a nice and pointy corner. You could also do rounded corners on this if you wanted to. You could do whatever shape you wanted. Just when you're doing your stitches, make sure you're doing that pointed corner. Okay. It looks good. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to close up the opening of this bag. So just like we did before, we're going to fold in those raw edges. I'm going to stuff those in there like so. Let's push out these corners a little bit more. Fold them in and under. Might be easy to press them at the sewing Okay, so there is our exterior almost done. Now it's time to install the grommet. So I am going to go a little ways away from the pattern. If you're following the pattern, you have your grommet sets and you're going to punch your hole in. You're going to measure in 1/2 inch from the side and make a mark, and 1/2 inch down from the top of the exterior panel, make a mark. And I've already done that. You can kind of see my chalk lines there. And this is where you're going to put your grommets on each side. So you'd punch your hole, it'll go through all 4 layers there, and then you'd put your grommets in there. You'd be putting in 2 grommets, so one on the front panel and one on the back panel. So the back sides of the grommets are inside the bag. Because I'm not using regular grommets, I'm using these sewing grommets or screw-in grommets from Emmeline Bags. You can see my space in between is quite large that I have to fill, and I think it's going to make my grommets really loose if I do 2. So I'm actually going to just use 1 through both sides. That'll just make it so it doesn't open right up. If you take it off, it's going to have a pinch right there, which I am okay with. So I am going to go ahead and do that. I'm not going to show how I punch my grommet holes or anything, because as I said before, grommets are my kryptonite. They're not my strong point by any means, and I don't want you to see me struggle with it. You may have no problem with it. It's just, I really need more practice with grommets. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, install your grommets as per your manufacturer's instructions, and then we'll come back. I'll show you what we have, and we will work on that wrist strap. There you go, I installed it. So with what I'm using, you do see the screws on the back. I am glad, if you are using these ones from Emmeline Bags, I am glad that I only used the one, because it wouldn't have been thick enough to have 2 of them. Like, there would have been too much gap in between. So all that does is it kind of closes up this side, but that's okay. My card slots are still free, and there's still room to the bottom here. All right, so now it's the easy part. We're on to the wrist strap. So what you want to do is you want to take your wrist strap, and it's just like how we make any kind of strap. We're going to mark 1 inch up. Where's my chalk? So the middle point. Like that. I am going to take my double-sided tape. I'm going to put tape on either side of that line. Or if you got thicker tape, you can put it right down the middle. I just want to make sure that it catches both. And then fold each of the long sides into that center line. Like that. Same on the other side. And then fold it in half again, and to conceal all of those raw edges, and then clip. These are just pin curl, whatever. I find they don't leave as many marks in the cork as the Wonder Clips do. Instructions here. Okay, I just realized I've gone off course and I'm doing this my way instead of her way. So I am actually going to show you my way because I've already started it. So the way she does it is before clipping it like this, she sews the two ends together and then she makes a loop and then folds them all in and does it that way. Yeah, I'm actually doing a different way of doing it, so I'll show you my way of doing it. So now what we're going to do, that we have this clipped, we're going to take this to the machine, and down each side we're going to do a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so I forgot to mention, only do it my way if you're using non-fraying fabric, because there are raw edges that are left. If you're using fabric, make sure you do it how it's written in the pattern. So I'm just singeing the ends of my cork here. So what we want to do is we want to take our gate ring and we're going to, okay, I got to try to explain how I'm doing this. Okay, so we want our wrong side of the cork to be to the inside, like this. We're going to take this side and put it about, I don't know, about an inch or so. You want the gate ring to be sitting about an inch under. I mean, if we do this wrong, we can always, actually no, we won't be able to loop it in, but okay. And so I got my raw edge right up against that gate ring, and I'm going to fold this side down. Do you know what? I need a little bit more. Go about 1.5. And fold it down. So we got one raw edge there and the other one there, and we have the gate ring sandwiched in between the two. Oops, that's too big. Punch your hole, but not with a giant hole like I almost did there. And punch through. And then install your rivet there. I may have to pull out my extra large rivets because this is really super thick, but we'll see if I can get it through. Oh, you know what? It might be okay. Yeah, I'll be fine. Okay, so I got my rivet through both sides, and now I'm going to set my rivet. That's my rivet set. So that's how I actually do all my wristlet straps for my cork wallet. That's why I just automatically went to do this, because it's out of habit. But yeah, hers won't have these raw edges, which you may actually prefer. They'll be more streamlined. But I started doing it this way and I just didn't want to back out. So now what we want to do is we want to take out the screws of our gate ring here. If mine will come apart. There we go. Tightening it. Loosen. My screwdriver isn't quite the right size. I get my gate rings from Emmeline Bags. Screw out. I'm actually, can I manage to do, I'm only going to take out one side if I can. No, it won't let me. Do not lose your screws. There she comes. Okay. So on my screws, I just have a piece of scrap fabric here and my thread locker. This is the kind I use. Medium. Get it at Princess Auto, Canadian Tire, Home Depot, any Walmart. You can pretty much get it at any department store. And I just squirt a little bit onto those screws, let it set for a second. And then you're going to take your ring. You're going to put it through that grommet like so. And then put your gate ring back together. My screwdriver is just a little dollar store screwdriver. I sometimes wish it would bzz, bzz, you know, be battery operated. And the blue thread locker, it does clear dry, so you don't have to worry about it showing on anything. And I would just move those screws kind of in behind there. And there we have our wristlet, guys. How amazing! She's done. She looks great. That's it. That's our Shazzy wristlet. Not too bad for the first try. So I really hope you guys, oh, you can see the messiness of my floor. Ignore that. I really hope you guys like this tutorial. I tried to show a little bit more the machine. Tell me if that's yes or no. It does make my videos a little bit longer. I would love your feedback as to how to make my videos better than they already are. I'm learning a lot and I hope it's great. Anyways, that's the Shazzy Wristlet by Oro Rosa Designs. I will put a link down below, of course, where you can pick up this pattern. All right, everybody, again, if you like this, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe. I can see a lot of my viewership, only 49% of you are subscribed. So if you could do me a solid and just hit that subscribe button, that would be great. I'm going to have a lot more tutorials coming up in the near future. So thanks everybody for tuning in with this, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.